So much going on, so much to get to. Ryan Nobles is a Washington correspondent with CNN, formerly from here. But you'll always be from here, Ryan. You can never get that out of you.
I'm proud, Bill. Very proud of that. I'm also very proud that I made the cut, despite all of your busyness this morning.
Yes, you have made the cut. Well, listen, what do you think? Can we talk a little? A little. I know that we normally talk about what's going up on Capitol Hill, but there's got to be some hustling and bustling today after Georgia last night.
Yeah, and Bill, and I don't really know how much we should draw from what happened last night. I don't really know if there are too many lessons to be learned from there. It's such a unique situation when you have a special election in a very specific congressional district.
Which is Republican. It leaned Republican,
right,
the district.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By like 1.5%. They voted that district Trump only won it by like 1.5%.
No. We're talking about Republicans versus Democrats, and it's about 5%. Is it the number 5%? More Republicans.
Let's just look at the history of it. The guy that whose job that was before in Congress, Tom Price, is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He won on an average of a little around 20% by a 20% margin on a regular basis. So this has been a consistently safe Republican district. Mm-hmm. It's maybe not as deep red as some districts in the country, but think about this. The reason that the president right now is 4-0 in special elections is because he's picked the people who have left those seats, right? So he went out and said, I want to make Ryan Zink my Secretary of the Interior out of Montana, and I want to make Tom Price the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And so, he went and picked the FBI director, Mike Pompeo from Kansas.
And people in those communities, those communities are going to look on that very fondly, that their guy got picked, or woman.
Yeah,
right?
But also he's picking people from Republican districts.
Right.
He knows that when they have these special elections that Republicans are likely to hold them. So it's not a surprise that a Republican won last night. If a Republican didn't win, that's where you'd see a problem. And the reason that Democrats were focused on this Georgia district was because the margins are a little bit tighter than they might have been in some of these other Republican districts. And the type of Republican in this particular district, this is, the urban question of Atlanta, they tend to be a little bit more white-collar, a little more educated. That's where the president doesn't have as much success with.
Yeah.
But Democrats couldn't pull it off. So I don't think you can, even though it might have been a little bit closer, you're pouring millions and millions of dollars. You're getting all kinds of attention to a congressional race that normally wouldn't get this much attention.
Right.
I don't see how you extrapolate that out to 2018 when there's going to be 430 races just like this that aren't going to get nearly as funded. I don't think it tells us very much about what's going to happen in 2018 from the Democratic or the Republican perspective. This is a unique snapshot in time of what's happening right now.
I've been very critical of it and saying that I think the writing is on the wall for Democrats. And talk about this. I'm not sure that the current leadership, the current face of the Democrat Party, is the answer. Nancy Pelosi. They tie everything to Nancy Pelosi. Isn't it time for fresh faces, new, more possibly moderate, going far to the left? I'm not sure is going to be the answer. Do you agree with any of that?
Well, I do think, Bill, that the fact that Donald Trump is so controversial is masking the problems of the Democratic Party right now. I mean, they're completely rudderless. They do not have a leader of any consequence.
Yep.
They're certainly kind of in a wasteland right now, trying to figure out exactly what this party means. Are you the party of Bernie Sanders, which would be, heavily to the progressive side? Are you the party of Hillary Clinton? They haven't decided that yet. And that's a difficult position to be in going into the midterms when you don't have a consistent message as to exactly what you're going to sell to the American people. And let me remind you, you do not win elections by just being opposed to the other guy. And we've seen this. I mean, I remember back to the election of 2004, George W. Bush, John Kerry.
Yep.
And George W. Bush had a kind of there was maybe 40% of the country who just hated him. They were mad about the war in Iraq. They were mad about the state of the economy. They were mad about a million things. But the Democrats nominated a guy in John Kerry who people were never really that passionate about.
Right.
So the Democrats' entire message was, we're not George Bush. Well, that wasn't enough to win the election.
Yep.
last year, 2016, their whole message was, we're not Donald Trump. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
That wasn't enough to win the election.
And
you've got to find a leader people can get behind, and Democrats haven't been able to do that.
You're up there all the time, and so who do you see? Is there somebody out there? Is there somebody the Democrats might be looking at? Because right now it doesn't seem like there's anybody.
You know, I actually been talking about this particular issue with my colleagues a lot, and I do believe that there is a wealth of talent on the Democratic bench right now, and I think a lot of them are leery about sticking their toe in the water right now, because if you lose to Donald Trump, then your political career in terms of Democratic politics will never recover.
Yeah.
So I look at a guy like Cory Booker, for instance, from New Jersey, huge rising star. He's been on people's radar since he was the mayor of Newark. A very eloquent speaker, the kind of guy that can bring down a room. You don't hear a lot about Cory Booker in 2020, because if you're a guy like Cory Booker, who's really his sole mission in life is to become president of the United States someday, does he really want to take the risk, the gamble of running against an incumbent president, even if it is Donald Trump? Because if you lose, you're probably not going to get a second chance.
Yeah, you're done.
So I think there's Kamala Harris, who's a really impressive senator from California, who's a rising star. She was the attorney general there, African-American woman. An eloquent speaker, former prosecutor. She would definitely be somebody that you talk about. But does she want, her career is really just getting started. Does she really want to take the risk of running and losing to Donald Trump because it could be the end of their career? I think this is a different environment. In past years and past cycles, if you were running against a popular president and you were a Democrat and you lost, but you put up a good effort, people might say, all right, well, let's give this person another chance.
Yeah.
The environment's completely different with Donald Trump, because the rock-ribbed, solid component of the Democratic Party is so hell-bent on him losing. If you're the person that takes him on and doesn't succeed, I don't see a future for you.
And how do the Democrats turn now after saying, hey, this is a mandate on this president, and they were all in? Now, today, because they were just barking that up yesterday, so now today we're going to be like, not a mandate. This is not a mandate. How do you reverse?
Well, and I also think that Democrats, this idea that they had a moral victory last night is silly. There's no such thing as moral victories. Moral victories don't stop legislation. They don't get a vote on the House floor. It doesn't really mean anything. For Democrats to act like this wasn't that big of a deal, that this was a Republican district all along, we never planned on winning it, then why did you invest $20 million? Why did you spend all the time and effort that you did to try and topple a Republican in this district? I think this is a perfect example, Bill, of where Democrats just don't know what their next step is. They have all this momentum and enthusiasm behind their candidate. There's certainly a groundswell of support amongst the Democratic Party to do something to oppose Donald Trump, but they can't get organized. They can't figure it out. They don't know what the next step is. So I think the biggest thing for them is they've got to start coming up with some legislative victories. They've got to find a way to be an alternative to Donald Trump in a positive way, not a negative one, so that people start to buy into this again and start to get, to believe that, the Democratic Party is the loyal opposition that they're looking for and they'll want to support.
I think it all comes down to a nutshell. 2018, all comes down to this. And, obviously there could be a lot of different things that could affect. But your take on this, if the Senate, and they will repeal Obamacare, it's going to be a completely different system than what the House put forth. And I'm not sure that the Freedom Caucus is going to be all that happy with it, and that could cause problems. But if they do repeal, and at the end of this year, next year, if it goes well, if it's not a disaster, if it isn't killing people like is being warned, and the American people are okay with their health care, then I think Republicans win a big victory there. If there are cases, and of course, the Democrats are really going to exploit them, are cases where people are completely unhappy with the new system, then Democrats will do well. What are your thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry.
They have an important issue of this next year and a half, and that's why it's so baffling to me that Republicans have screwed it up so much up until this point. They've had 7 years to come up with an Obamacare alternative, and they haven't. But you're right. This is something that everybody's looking for. And right now the Democratic Party has decided that they're going to play the role of obstructionist. They're not going to be a constructive part of the equation, which could perhaps be a smart political decision to make. Mm-hmm. The question is, if Republicans can't come up with an alternative, you're right. People are going to blame them for it, and they are going to take out that blame on the ballot box in 2018. For all of the bluster that happens in Washington, there are very few issues in Washington that are debated that the average person actually feels the impact of, right?
Right.
Healthcare is one of them. This is something that every single one of us have a premium that's taken out of our paychecks every 2 weeks, or we're not even fortunate enough to be in a position where our employer provides it for us, so we've got to go out and pay for it ourselves. We all have to go to the doctor. We all break legs. We all do these things. So when you're looking for something tangible to tack on someone, healthcare is that thing.
Yeah.
And you're right, Bill. If the perception in 6 months or a year is that the situation is worse, that's going to make life very difficult for Republicans. But to your point, if Democrats take the gamble and put it all on the backs of Republicans, and they actually find a way through this malaise and come up with a plan that actually doesn't make things worse, well, then what argument do you have for the American people?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be, and no one's really been talking about it because Russia's clouded the conversation.
Right.
We had the shooting last week. This is the big week for healthcare. A lot's going to happen this week, and it's important to keep an eye on it.
All right, Ryan Nobles, correspondent up on Capitol Hill with CNN. You got to send me a press photo so I can do some stuff with it if you can. The only press photo I have of you, Ryan, is you're in studio here playing guitar. So
I think that's pretty badass.
I really need a new photo. If you can forward us that, I'd appreciate it.
Bill, I'll always remember that one time when I was in Price Chopper a long time ago, not after my performance of Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Yeah.
When a woman in the line at Price Chopper recognized me, and she said, "Hey," and I expected her, "Oh, yes, I'm Ryan Nobles from WKTV." And she said, "No, you're the guy that played guitar on Bill Keeler's show, right?"
Well, hey, it could be worse, right? It could be worse. All right, Ryan, great stuff. Thank you so much, Ryan Nobles. We appreciate it.